Greetings. This is General CJG here, coming to you with the second part of our podcast where we're tackling the Purge comics. Last week we tackled the first two Purge comics, Purge from 2005 and Purge Seconds to Die. Now we're tackling Purge the Hidden Blade and Purge Tyrant's Fist. So joining me here is
Jedi Knight Luke Warren.
Yep. So, without further ado, we're starting with Purge the Hidden Blade. So, you want to do the summary in this one, Luke, or should I do it?
I'll try to do it as best I can.
Okay.
So, the Hidden Blade begins on the planet Octavian 12, and the Empire are currently constructing AT-AT walkers and you have the natives who are attempting to fight back against the Imperial forces, and very quickly the Man in Black himself gets involved and wastes a group of natives that are present on the planet, and General Crick, after Vader is finished with those natives, says that Vader is taking unnecessary risks, to which Vader just shrugs it off by saying that the natives don't pose any threat, and that saying that the Elvoni are a dying species. So Vader basically instructs General Crick to have the Imperial soldiers dedicate their efforts to constructing the walkers, and then Vader contacts us, and we see that Vader is sensing a very powerful presence on the planet, but Sidious kind of scolds him for this, because Vader is not looking at the bigger picture due to a case of tunnel vision, since he's still very, very much focused on finding Obi-Wan at this point.
Or Jedi. Well, actually more Jedi than just Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I suppose. After Vader speaks with Sidious, General Crick says that the perimeter sensors have picked up movement just after daybreak, and it's found out that this movement is a injured clone commander. But after Vader sees the dying soldier back, he motivated to set out alone and basically instructs General Crick and the rest of those men to stay there. Then we come to the Jedi and his apprentice, who are by a couple of lanterns, and I believe it's the Padawan who is saying that they should depart before first light. But a master, being a master, says Vader will eventually catch up to them, which he does. And it doesn't take long before Vader and the Padawan are engaged in combat. And Vader asks what the Padawan's name is, and then says trickery will not save the Padawan after the Padawan tries to use some sort of... is that an electric charge or something? But Vader very promptly disarms the Padawan and peels back the hood, and then realizes he is a Padawan, and the Padawan tells Vader that his master is en route to his starship, and that once he escapes, that Vader won't find him. So Vader doesn't take long with dispatching him, and actually pulls a bit of an Anakin Skywalker, funnily enough. Presumably decapitating the apprentice. General Crick then contacts Vader via Vader's probe droid, and Crick basically says that if the starfighter is present somewhere, then it's beyond scanner range and they won't be able to detect it. Vader says that the Jedi Master won't reach the summit. Crick says that Vader should return, but Vader refuses, pretty much, doesn't he? He basically leaves General Crick to discipline the men into focusing on the walkers himself. Then we have some generic soldiers under the command of the Jedi Master who Vader has sensed, and Vader makes short work of them. And there is a standard soundboard emitter that was left within the lab, and after analyzing it, Vader determines that a call has been encrypted And we come to this old thing, a massive jungle beast of some kind.
Huge.
And it gives Vader quite the fight, even managing to disarm him. But Vader actually manages to use the mind trick and then destroy the soundboard emitter.
That's correct.
Then we come to Mount Jandy, who we later realize is actually a trickster. Says, I did not expect you to find me so quickly. To make this short and to the point, after a quick clash of blades, Vader is able to disarm him, and there's a remark made about Vader's precision. But this particular man had a second blade, which he used and actually disarmed Vader and sort of tore through his glove. And we have sort of it's brutal, and it's also kind of a case of dark humor, I guess, because it's like, I've kept a second blade, but then Vader quickly turns the tables on the trickster and says, so have I, and ignites the Padawan's blue saber into this trickster's stomach. So Vader kills this Jedi using the lightsaber of the Padawan that he had fought earlier on in the comic, and we then get a brief appearance from Palpatine, where he instructs Vader to meditate on his failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of that one.
So, what do you think of this one, Luke?
For me personally, I think this comic is a bit of a downgrade in quality compared to either of the previous ones.
Whoa, really? Explain.
I didn't find the story quite as gripping in this one, and I don't know, it could just be me, but you know the Visionaries comics? The ones that were released in the early mid-2000s?
Uh-huh. What about that?
For some reason, the art style in this comic looks far more like those rather than what we saw in either of the previous ones.
Well, it's the same art style that was used in the Blood Ties comics.
Oh, I don't think I've read those. So,
Well, yeah, same artist, Chris Calf. So there is that. Oh, he even did a bit of art for the Essential Reader's Companion.
let's see.
Oh, and the Essential Guide to Warfare as well. So yeah, this story, you're gonna be surprised who the writer is. The writer is Hayden Blackman. Yes, the same Force Unleashed writer, Hayden Blackman. That same guy. So
Yeah.
He also wrote the Battle of Javim. So yeah, let's just say when he writes in Star Wars, for the most of the time, it's, or actually 99% of the time, it's freaking amazingness. Save for maybe the Force Unleashed 2. That's where you could argue, yeah, that stretches a bit into fanfiction territory. So
if you compare this to other comics that Hayden Blackman has written, I think this one isn't quite as good as some others. But that's just my opinion.
I actually would argue others are actually worse, because this one I actually think is pretty damn great, because unlike the previous Purge comic, Seconds to Die, this one was focused on Darth Vader. Similar to the first one, but more focused on Darth Vader. And not only do I really like the art style, which is a step up from the art style from the second Purge comic, but I also think it definitely... But here's the thing, in the two previous Purge comics, we have not seen Vader fail. Like, not really fail. Yeah, maybe, yeah, he was close to dying in the first Purge comic, but he still succeeded because of clones. Alright, and his failure proved useful to Darth Sidious. But here, oh no, there's no usefulness in this failure. Vader failed completely, all because he could not let go of his obsession of single-handedly killing the Jedi. And, well, that ended up biting him in the ass in the end. So, yeah, I think that was really strong. Like, we don't get to see many times where Darth Vader fails in the EU. Like, at least not to my extension. And if he fails, it was because either his opponent was really freaking good or had some sort of strong relationship with Vader, you know, Obi-Wan or Luke Skywalker, that type of opponents. So yeah, in my case, I actually think this comic is pretty damn great, both in the writing and the art style. I think it's definitely better than Seconds to Die, mainly for the art style. So, because the art style is much better. But yeah, so that's what I think on this one. I love the art style, and the story is also great. It's Hayden Blackman, so no surprise there. So yeah, this is definitely quality. So yeah, this was awesome. And compared to other Vader comics that we might tackle in later podcasts, this one was one of the best. So yep, that's what I think. So, got anything else to say on this one, Luke?
No.
Okay, now we go to the second one, Star Wars Purge, The Tyrant's Fist. Okay, this one is a 2-issue part comic, so it's a bit more different than the other two. Okay, I'll keep the summary brief because it being a two-parter, I don't want to pretty much keep this one long. So basically, on the planet Backlane, the Empire is stationed there with Vader pretty much assigned to pretty much force the Backlane insurgency to either give up or be destroyed, and to pretty much finally have the population of the planet to pretty much submit to the fact that the Jedi are dead and that there's no hope for them and that the Empire rules with an iron fist. Yep, that's what it is. But let's just say that one of the last of the Jedi from the Backlane insurgency is causing trouble, and so Vader has to deal with that Jedi, as well as with the people pretty much rallying behind the Jedi. And so the Jedi has had some success in the first assault at the beginning of the comic, but then Vader has to find some way to sway the population of the city to stop believing the Jedi, to be their savior, to be their hope, to stop giving him support. And so him, as well as the major the Imperial officer, which is Major Oniya Namada, the female Imperial officer that's there. They pretty much have to figure out a way to basically get the planet's population to pretty much stop giving support to the Jedi, and to have the Empire pretty much rule and the population to completely submit to them, and to no longer give any hope to the Jedi, because the Jedi is basically what's keeping the Empire from truly controlling the planet. And Sidious said at one point via hologram to Vader that there cannot be any bombardment. They cannot just kill the city and just kill all the city's inhabitants there. No, they need to dissuade them to pretty much. Okay, so this is how Sidious says it. The destruction of the planetary population means the loss of Backlane and its resources. I did not send you there to lose, Lord Vader. Our new order has not yet consolidated its power. At this delicate juncture, we cannot afford to rule through fear alone. If you cannot think as a ruler instead of a soldier, I will find other duties for you. So yeah, basically, it's at this point where Vader had to truly let go of his tunnel vision hatred for the Jedi and actually think in order to truly get Backlane on the Empire control. And so they devise their plan, they execute it, and well, it's definitely working as planned. The Jedi definitely is slowly losing support. The people are over time forgetting that the Jedi even exist, because the Empire is destroying all sorts of relics, from statues that were in the city to even the Jedi temple that was built in honor of the Jedi, so on and so forth. And then Vader faces the Jedi, and the Jedi will pretty much, let's just say, faces Vader, and well, the Jedi loses, but Vader doesn't kill him. He almost did, but doesn't kill him. He lets him live in a place where it's filled with toxicity. But the Jedi escapes, tries to get help, but instead gets killed. And, well, he's seen as a complete embarrassment in front of the Backlane population. So, yeah. By that point, the population pretty much just completely... Yeah, they submitted to the Empire. The insurgency was wrecked, and yeah, the Empire won. Vader won. So there you go. That's the end of this one. So yeah, there's that. What do you think of this one, Luke?
I think the Tyrant's Fist is definitely the superior story out of the two, especially once it gets into the second issue. I think my favourite scene in this story would have probably been the conversation which motivated Vader to knuckle down and actually think as a leader. Where, the one where, if you can't think as a leader instead of a soldier, I will find out the duties for you. Be gone from my sight.
Yeah, indeed. That was great indeed. Yeah.
I think the art style in this is much better in both of these comics.
I think the art style is definitely better than Seconds to Die. Is it better than the Hidden Blade or the first Purge comic? I'd say on par with the first Purge comic. I think the Hidden Blade has the best art style because I really do like that art style. But this one is definitely pretty great. Yeah, Seconds to Die is the one that has my least favorite art style of the 4 Purge comics. So that's why. Not a bad one, but not my favorite. So, yep, indeed. Story-wise, well, the reason why it's better than the reason why it's better in terms of writing is because it's a two-parter, so it had more leeway in fully writing a story instead of rushing it into one issue. So that's probably why it has a leg up over Hidden Blade and possibly also the other two. I still prefer the first Purge comic over the others, but Hidden Blade is a close second to me, followed by this one. So yeah, what do you think?
There are a couple of very significant scenes that I can think of from this particular comic. One being, what was the do you know the species of the Jedi who Vader interrogated earlier on in the second of Tyrant's Fist, where he said, where he used the Force to crush that Jedi's heart?
Oh, I know I know who you're talking about. Unfortunately, there's one problem. Look, that species is completely unidentified. Wikipedia has absolutely no mention of what species it is, only that it's just reptilian, it's male, it has silver eye colors and orange scales.
Damn it. Okay.
And the main reason why this is the case, look, is because this comic, Tyrant's Fist, the first part came out in December 2012, and the second part into January 2013. You can probably already guess why that's.
Because of how late into the EU these comics came out, there wasn't much time to fully craft a definitive species.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
But going back to more positive things regarding the comic, something else which I think is great is actually towards the very end, where you get that last hint of a monologue. The female Imperial Major, in the panel just after Vader's conversation with Sidious, towards the end of the second Tyrant's Fist issue, kicks off the final speech from soliloquy, I guess you could call it, from the Imperial Major, and there's a panel that you get where Vader is looking at the sabers he has collected from various Jedi kills, which is interesting. It makes you wonder why he didn't carry a secondary blade more often, actually.
Probably for collection, but this is unfortunately one aspect that was not explored, again because 2013 this comic came out, 1 year before you know what.
The EU decanonization.
Yep.
Is it in the... I believe it's in the first Tyrant's Fist issue, towards the end of that, where we get a snippet of Tukata monsters.
No, those actually are in the second one when they're entering the Jedi Temple.
That's the second one again, sorry. Mm-hmm. And Vader just slaughters those casually.
Yeah, indeed. So that's the one.
That's all I can think of that would be worthy of note. Can you think of anything else to discuss in depth from this, or no?
Okay. Well, now we get into the U connections part. So right off the bat, I think we should start with the Hidden Blade, if you ask me. So the Hidden Blade. Now, this comic does have a bit of an advantage over Tyrant's Fist in that it came out in 2010. So that gives it leeway to actually, of not only its sources being more mentioned in several sources, like the Central Reader's Companion at least, well, assuming that one actually gives a shit about this comic, which probably doesn't. But it does give it a bit more leeway in actually being referenced in other EU material. For example, you're not going to believe this, but this planet and some of its characters, like the Oboni, as well as the Jedi Master, the Trickster, like those actually were referenced in Dark Times Fire Carrier 1 and Dark Times A Spark Remains. Yep. Dark Times Comics actually referenced this comic. So that's an interesting one. Mm-hmm. Yep. So there is that. Other so the planet of Autobahn 12 not only is it mentioned in those two comics, but also in Darth Vader and the Lost Command. Yes, Darth Vader and the Lost Command. So think of that, look. that's definitely several interesting references, considering that those comics, Starfire and the Lost Command, as well as the Dark Times, came out after Hidden Blade. And the Lost Command was actually written by Hayden Blackman, so makes sense that that would reference his previous work. So that's an interesting one. Well, the Dark Times ones were written by Radley Stradley, so he pretty much just got those references. So there is that. So yeah, the Hidden Blade definitely references those 4 comics. That seems to be the four EU connections that tied the most. Now, Tyrant's Fist. Okay, this one is the one I think is probably the a bit interesting, but also limited because interesting as its EU connections are actually closer to previous sources of the Expanded Universe rather than sources that came out after it. For example, the species in which the Jedi, which was called, if I'm not mistaken, he was called Chona Bene. That's the Jedi's name. So that first species actually first appeared all the way into the Tron trilogy. Yep, all the way into the Tron trilogy, the Minerish. Yep. So keep that in mind. So the Tyrant's Fist is using one of the very first EU sources that established the EU timeline that we know nowadays. So that's a
bit of a wow surprise.
Mm-hmm. You want an even more surprise? This comic also featured the Reen alien species. Now, what are the Reen? Well, if you search them, you'll know that they were created by James Luceno in New Jedi Order Ages of Chaos 1.
Hero's Trial, isn't that,
yes.
I believe?
Yes, that is correct. So, yep. So this comic pretty much dates back to the Tron trilogy and even New Jedi Order. What do you think of that one?
Again, very surprised.
Well, that's the strength of the EU, using a lot of sources. So yeah, not only that, they also use the bearable alien species, which again is from the Tron trilogy, particularly Dark Force Rising. Though actually they were first mentioned in Galaxy Guide 4, alien races, the Barabel. So there's that as well. So yep. Plus, the TX-130T fighter tank from Star Wars The Clone Wars SOSW video game is in this comic, as well as the acetyl gas that first appeared in Fate of the Jedi Abyss. And then the Fiorin, that alien species, actually first came in Star Wars Starfighter. Yes, Star Wars Starfighter, the game. Mm-hmm.
Again, wow.
Yeah, apparently Purge Tyrant's Fist has a bit more on the interesting side of EU connections, but it's mostly EU connections from previous EU sources. It unfortunately does not establish any sources to get referenced later on, again, because it came out in late 2012, early 2013, which sucks, but that's what happened. So, because yeah, that's why I said that the Tyrant's Fist is interesting, yet limited when it comes to its EU connections. That's what sucks.
But it's clear that Hayden Blackman did try to reference as many eras from the Star Wars medium, across the spectrum as much as he could.
Small clarification, look, Hayden Blackman only wrote The Hidden Blade. The guy that actually wrote Tyrant's Fist, you're going to be surprised at his name, it's Alexander Freed. Yes, Battlefront Twilight Company, Alexander Freed.
I actually haven't read any of the new canon novels, so I didn't recognize that name.
Well, he's the one that wrote that book, Battlefront Twilight Company, as well as also writing Alphabet Squadron in Disney Star Wars. But that's Disney Star Wars, so we're not going to mention it. But yes, he's the same author that wrote those stories and the one that wrote Tyrant's Fist and a few Old Republic comics as well. So, yep, there you go. So actually, it was Alexander Freed who took all the EU sources and put them into the Tyrant's Fist. Hayden Blackman, as far as I know, he also must have tried to dig in. But considering there's not many alien species, just the Yaboni, so it seems that he was mostly making new stuff for the EU rather than taking from the old stuff. So there is that.
Interesting.
Which is fine, because his sources were referenced in later EU works, so that's good. Hayden Blackman is no stranger to using previous EU works, putting them in his works. If you read the Republic comics, and you know that, so there's that. So, yeah. Oh, and fun fact: Hayden Blackman wrote Star Wars Starfighter, which Tyrant's Fist referenced.
What now?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yes, look. Don't be too surprised, or maybe you should be surprised. Hayden Blackman's work in Star Wars is a long one. So why do you think he's loved by many EU fans, particularly those that love the Battle of Jabim, like a good or pal de Django? There's that. So anyway, any other EU connections you want to mention, Luke?
Well, you've got the two kata in Tyrant's Fist, so wouldn't that technically be a KOTOR connection?
It's actually from Tales of the Jedi, Dark Lords of the Sith, issue 3, actually.
Oh, okay. So should we count that as a reference to both, or just Tales of the Jedi, since that's where the two kata really originated from?
It's Tales of the Jedi that we pretty much would have to reference there.
Right.
Indeed. What else did we gotta mention of EU sources?
I can't think of anything else.
Okay, well, then that leads us to the conclusion to these Purge comics. So, Luke, go first.
These I'll say two because you've got Tyrant's Fist, which is a two-parter, but it's still one story. These two comics for me I didn't enjoy them quite as much as the first two, but that's not by any means me saying that they're bad. If you want to experience the full Purge story arc, then give these a read. And there were also some great moments in them, like the interactions between Vader and Palpatine, even though there wasn't much of that. The confrontation between Vader and the Jedi that we see in Tyrant's Fist. We see more of the foundations of the Empire in the form of the AT-ATs being constructed, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So again, it's not that these comics are without merit. They just didn't grab me quite as much. But again, not saying they're bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my final thoughts on these two Purge comics. Hidden Blade, I definitely liked it. It was great. Tyrant's Fist, I also liked. Hidden Blade, I liked more simply because of the art style. So there's that, but Tyrant's Fist was great. The first Purge comic is still my favorite, as I mentioned before, for specific reasons. But the Hidden Blade is the second in my case. Tyrant's Fist would probably be number 3, simply because his story was definitely it was pretty much given the leeway to tell the story that I wanted to tell with the two issues instead of just limited to just one shot like the other 3. So there's that. Seconds to Die, the only reason I'm my least favorite is simply because of the art style. That's pretty much the only reason. So yeah, but that doesn't mean that Seconds to Die is bad or no. All 4 of them are great reads. Definitely read all 4 of them. You can read them in the Marvel Legends Epic Collection, The Empire Volume 1. They're there. So, yep. And so with that, we've finished with the Purge comics. So yeah, now what will be the next EU podcast? Well, we'll have to see. But for now, we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.